Let's do Geno Smith, okay? So here's the thing about Geno. Released by the Raiders, can be had for a veteran minimum contract. He is a couple years removed from a 4,020 touchdown season where he won 10 games with the Seattle Seahawks. I will say that it feels a little bit like the E.J. Manuel to Jameis Winston Florida State thing where, oh yeah, he won 10 games and threw for all these yards. Okay, but then they let him go. He was a disaster with the Raiders, while the Seahawks won 14 games with the number one seed and won the Super Bowl the minute they moved on from Geno and brought in Sam Darnold. So there is a little bit of that there because physically I don't think Sam is like that much athletically gifted or like that top tier above Geno from a physical standpoint. So you lose one, you gain the other, and suddenly you're so much better and still have to go through the Rams and the Niners. Like there is something there to it. With Geno, though, again, there are other teams that want him. Like I've heard the Miami Dolphins, like we just said, where if things fall through and they don't get Willis, that could be an option where they get him. Like there are other teams that are interested. The Minnesota Vikings, if they don't get Kyler, there was interest there in Geno Smith. But with him being available, that is a name that's picked up a lot of steam, and I don't hate it. It's funny, Zach, because I never even considered it until on this show 3-4 weeks ago, you brought him up, and it was almost like in real time I reacted to it. I was like, oh, Geno. No, actually, you know what? That makes some sense. I kind of like that. Like, and it's I do. I don't hate that at all.
I think I'm higher on him than it seems. I think everybody is weighing last season pretty heavily, which I get because it was bad. Like they went 2-13 with him as a starter, I think, and he threw 15 interceptions. But it was a mess in Las Vegas. Like Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly. I think Mike Silver wrote a story where Chip Kelly was like passing off game planning to his other coaches. Like Chip Kelly just straight up wasn't game planning. So like just an absolute disaster in there. Geno probably didn't help himself, but if you look at Geno Smith from 2022 to 2024, I believe he was second in passing yards. I think he was in the top 5 in passing touchdowns. He had the best percentage of off-target throws, as in he only threw 7% of his throws were off-target, which was the best mark in the NFL from that stretch. And he was in like the top 10 or top 15 in EPA. So like that was 2 years ago. That's not that long ago. And I know he's 35, but he also had like a 6-year stretch where he didn't play at all. So he's a unique player, and I think he's a really solid stopgap guy. I didn't cover him, so I don't know what the personality is. I don't know what the leadership component is and all that stuff, but I think you could do a lot better selfishly as a writer and podcaster. I think having Geno Smith as the New York Jets quarterback 10 years after they got rid of him would be pretty cool. Like that'd be some great content right there. And I just think he's a gunslinger and he's a fun quarterback to watch because he's not really afraid of anything. And you know, we've covered enough quarterbacks here who are afraid to throw the ball, including this last year. And I'm tired of watching quarterbacks just like not take the throws where they're there or even not try to take any risks. And, you know, maybe it would be terrible. Maybe it wouldn't go well. But I've been surprised at the negative reaction. Like, I think it's like since my story dropped this morning, you talked about Geno too as well in your reporting. It's been like pretty like not universal, but pretty close to it negative about the idea of bringing Geno back. And I don't really understand it because if you look at the other options, I think everybody pie in the sky is like, why not just pay Malik Willis? Why not trade the second-round pick for Mac Jones? Like, I don't think the Jets want to give up assets, including money or draft picks right now. So, like, you just have to, like, take the best of what the options are, and I really do think there's a very good case to be made that Geno's – even Jacoby Brissett, who I guess we can get to him next if you want, or Derek Carr. But, like Brissett's a guy that you have to trade for him. So, like, you have to give up capital in order to get him, whereas Geno Smith, you can just sign him. And I know – you know, why are the Jets being skimpy? But like, Jets fans want the Jets to lose every game this year to build for next year, while also wanting them to go and trade draft assets for a quarterback who might not be their future. So like, I don't blame the Jets for not wanting to give up assets for an average quarterback ultimately. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's why I like Geno as like just a really fun, good stopgap. And if it doesn't work, then you don't have to be tied down to him a year from now.
There's a floor that's raised with Geno. And when you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, if it works, great. You got a chance to have a legitimate guy there. But you knew that if it didn't work with Justin Fields, it could look like what it did last year. The Jets aren't a contender with Geno Smith. The Jets aren't pushing the playoffs with Geno Smith. The Jets aren't competing with the Bills or the Patriots with Geno Smith. But they're not a disaster. They would be just a normal bad team. Like, I mean, yeah, if they have a hell of a free agent class and they hit absolute dimes and home runs in the draft, then yeah, they can turn it around a little bit quicker with Geno. But I just think he raises the floor. He's a competent starting NFL quarterback, and if you're getting him on a pretty good price and he wants to come here, I think you can do far worse. You can do absolutely far worse. This name's floating around too, and I think we're gonna dispel this one pretty quick here, Zach, because I sent a text message checking in on it, and we're talking about Derek Carr now. I was, as I'm typing the text message, I said, I was like, you're looking into it. Like, we're reporters. You look in, you dig, you talk to sources, you try to figure out what's true and what's not. It's how, when we dug, we found out that the Jets are pursuing Geno Smith and Carson Wentz. It's how you figure out things are not in play. It's where you figure out Kyler's going to the Vikings. You figure these things by working your sources and breaking news and figuring stuff out. So when I started digging on Derek, because I saw the podcast clip that everybody's talking about, I sent the text message out like, hey, is there any truth to this? I'm trying to dispel it, but because it doesn't make sense. And the person said, what specifically are you talking about? And my text that I sent read basically word for word, well, Derek Carr was doing a podcast with his brother, David Carr, and Derek was asking David, who David thinks Derek is going to play for if he plays football in 2026. What am I saying right now? What am I doing with my life? Like, that's what I'm saying. And the way that this kind of feels is like, they're trying to be the Kelsey brothers. They're trying to have the podcast pop off. I don't think anyone really watches that show except for when they start talking about the Jets, and then the Jets go absolutely crazy over it. So it almost felt like they were like fanning the flames a little bit. It's like, Jets, 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 let's get some interest in here. Because it's very intentionally bleeped out in a way that leaves some terminology of, wait, did he just say Jets? So I don't know, man. Like, I have turned up nothing that would indicate the Jets are actually involved in Derek Carr or interested in Derek Carr or want Derek Carr. I don't know if you've heard the same.
So I'd say a few things about this. Number one, everything I heard out of the combine was that, like, the Saints weren't even getting phone calls about Derek Carr. Yeah. Like, you need a trade for him in order to get him, by the way. And so the Saints have his rights. So my head when I saw that clip wasn't, oh, he's definitely going to the Jets. My takeaway was, he's maybe worried that no teams want him, and he is trying to put it out there that there's a team that he might be going to. Like, I that was my takeaway. And then you check in on it, and the vibe I get coming out of the Jets building, as you kind of alluded to there, is, I don't know where that's coming from. Don't count on it, essentially. Like that's kind of been the reaction. So I think the Jets are doing a good job of hunkering down and kind of not listening to all this dumb noise. But I've said it for a couple weeks. I don't see Derek Carr happening. If it did, it would be because the Jets kind of struck out on their other options, and so did Derek Carr. And like I said, I did my QB predictions thing, and I went through each team with quarterback openings to try and predict who they're going to be. And I just did not have a spot for Derek Carr. Like, I just don't know where he ends up. Maybe he's someone where, I don't know, like Justin Herbert gets hurt or Joe Burrow gets hurt again, and then all of a sudden those teams are desperate, and you trade with the Saints to get a starting quarterback for the rest of the season. I just don't see a fit anywhere. And even if the Jets strike out on Geno, strike out on Kyler, strike out on Jacoby, I still don't know that I want Derek Carr, frankly. Like, I still would rather go for a middling guy as opposed to a guy who hasn't played in 2 years, which is a long time in the NFL. We don't know what kind of shape he's in. He was banged up the last time he played. He wasn't that good for the Saints at the end. And he's 35, and he's a little bit sensitive to criticism. And so, So, like, I don't know if this is the best environment for him. And he said he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender like 2 weeks ago, and now he's like, I might go to the Jets. Like, the Jets aren't calling themselves Super Bowl contenders, so I know that you can't even pretend that they are. So it feels all phony to me. And maybe we'll have to eat our words if they trade for him, and then you and I are gonna be like, well, there's some merit to Derek Carr. But as of now, I just don't see that one being a fit.
No, I don't, and I don't. Again, like, you get rumblings, you get rumors. Like, when I reached out to people about, again, we've gotten to the point where at the combine, I genuinely do believe that Aaron Glenn really hadn't told anyone what he wants to do. When you leave the combine and you start to put together your free agency plan, the information gets out because people are talking, other people are trying to gain information, everyone's trying to figure out where the chess pieces are going, and that's where the intel starts to go, which is why you do hear rumblings and stuff at the combine, but where you really get the info is today, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the days going in. Specifically on Saturday and Sunday, that's when all of these teams will meet, front office, coaching staff, and that's when they figure out for the first wave of free agency who they're getting. They know. Like they will know Saturday and Sunday who they are getting at 12 o'clock on Monday. There was no, and Derek's a private person, so maybe there's some of that, but there was nothing on Carr to the Jets until this podcast came out. And then when I checked in on it, I was not led to believe that is an avenue worth digging. Like, and usually, like I said, people are pretty good. And people are like, oh, smoke screen trying to steer you away. It's usually when that's true when you're on to that's true almost when you're onto something that's true. When you're onto something that's false, it's more like just you're wasting your time here, buddy. And I think that's probably the vibe that both of us got. All right,
Wait,
keep moving on here.
Real quick before you go. We did a poll in the chat. Our producers did, and they asked if the chat would be in favor of Geno Smith or against it. And I assume there was like 1 million voters. I don't know the exact number, but it says 60% in favor, 60% in favor of Geno, and 40% against. So our listeners are into the Geno idea.